The way I build all of my meals is around really good grass-fed, good quality meat, red meat. I always throw in a bit of liver as well every few days, good grass-fed, good quality liver. There's so much research going into this of actually how we need red meat and how nutrient-dense liver is. But I try and pick the really good grass-fed quality stuff. And then lots of raw dairy, as much fruit as I can, with good quality honey. I don't have much bread or pasta. And I just try and avoid the processed food that's full of so many of the damaging seed oils. I also supplement with ancestral supplements. Check them out. It's because the truth is we need more organs than just liver. We should be eating pancreas and heart and all of that sort of stuff and testicles and all of that. So good ancestrally and naturally. But that combination is how I eat, how I try my best to stay strong. I hope it helps you.
No. There's a lot to unpack in this video. What I found really saddening to see is that someone who has a huge platform such as Grylls, with over 5.7 million of followers, spreads such dangerous misinformation. Let's start off with his claims about red meat. One of the studies he cited is the burden of proof study, in which the researchers wanted to explore the health effects of red meat. However, there's a big caveat when it comes to red meat consumption and health outcomes. The effects on red meat consumption on your health gets really bad once we go above the 100 grams per day threshold. The researchers looked at a small consumption of red meat per day. What did the researchers conclude on the study that Grylls cited? We found weak evidence of associations between unprocessed red meat consumption and colorectal cancer, breast cancer, ischemic heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Even by looking at such small amounts of red meat consumption, there's still weak evidence present. And the other study he cited is kind of a weird one, because they included randomized control trials with very short duration. In this study, they included only short-duration randomized controlled clinical trials. The problem with that is that diseases such as cardiovascular diseases or cancer, for example, take decades to form. The reason why I mentioned weird at the beginning is the following statement. They are stating that observational studies are useless in this research area. If observational studies are indeed useless, as they are stating here, then I guess we don't have any scientific evidence that smoking causes lung cancer. It just doesn't make much sense, right? And another big problem is that running a randomized control trial for very long is also maybe considered unethical. Imagine running a randomized control trial back in the day by separating people into two groups. One group is smoking all day and the other is not smoking all day. And you keep those people in the clinics for decades, just to evaluate which group develops lung cancer. You don't have to be a scientist to see that this method is not very ethical. And combining the results of observational studies with controlled clinical randomized control trials gives us even further clearance. Observational studies often suggest causal relationship that will then be either supported or rejected after further studies and experiments. And as the smoking example implies, causality can indeed be evaluated by observational studies. Another great example is that of Jon Snow and the chlorella outbreak in Soho. And I know what you're thinking, it's not Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. People used to believe that the air was responsible for this outbreak, but it was Jon Snow and his observational study that showed a causal link between the jam-contaminated water and the chlorella outbreak. This discovery saved hundreds, if not thousands of lives. But let's actually look at what researchers have to say about red meat consumption. This meta-analysis of randomized control trials looked at various comparison diets on cardiovascular risk and red meat consumption. They concluded that substituting red meat with high-quality plant protein sources, but not with fish or low-quality carbohydrates, which are basically junk foods, leads to more favorable changes in blood lipids and lipoproteins. What this basically translates to is a lower risk of cardiovascular diseases. Let's look at what observational studies have to say about that. This population-based study also adjusted for all kinds of things. They adjusted for smoking, gender, physical activities, and as you can see here, they literally adjusted for everything. And the researchers concluded that the association was even higher when we adjusted for all these kind of factors. What this basically means is that the association between mortality risk of red meat consumption was higher when the individuals were healthier. And the results of the last paper are in line with the following cohort study. They collected the baseline data from 1985 to 2002, and the participants were followed up until 2016. The researchers looked at almost 30,000 participants in this study, and they came to the conclusion that the association between unprocessed red meat intake and incidence of cardiovascular diseases was stronger in participants who consumed a higher quality diet, compared with those who did not. So the association seems to suggest that it's a bad idea to include red meat in your diet if you're eating a higher quality diet. Higher quality diet, by the way, is a diet of whole foods in general. And as I mentioned beforehand, the ceiling for red meat consumption seems to be at maximum 100 grams per day. And I'm talking about unprocessed red meat here. If we are talking about unprocessed red meat consumption, then the upper ceiling is only 50 grams per day. So in both cases, it's a really small amount. Let's have a look at these other two claims. Consuming raw dairy is kind of problematic. Raw dairy can be filled with pathogens. Pathogens, by the way, are foreign substances trying to invade your body, such as fungi, viruses, or bacteria. The last claim that Bears made was the claim about seed oils. I know that seed oils have been attacked on social media as of lately, but if you look at the scientific evidence that we have today, seed oils are actually healthy for you. This systematic review and meta-analysis of controlled clinical trials included 42 studies. They wanted to compare saturated fats against canola oil, which I guess is one of the most demonized seed oils out there. They concluded that replacing saturated fats with canola oil is a great idea if you want to decrease your chances of experiencing a cardiovascular event. Dear Bear Grylls, why are you making such false claims? You have such a huge platform, and whatever information you are sharing will reach millions. And the misinformation you shared during your video can potentially harm millions of people. The foods you are telling people to eat are also not highly available. Most people can probably not even afford them. You are basically leading the people to buy your supplements. Objectively speaking, this is great marketing that you're making. But to what expense? You are making money in the exchange for the health of other people. You can do better than this. What are your thoughts about this topic? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to follow for more.